Hello and welcome. In this video, I will jump. I will swear.
No fucking way.
I will drill some holes. I will swear some more. Fuck. And I will make some absolutely dreadful cuts. And I will snap some screws. I wanted to buy or build for the past few years a nice workbench, so I got in touch with Iain. Thank you, Iain. And I got a message, at the end of this shed there is a pile of wood. And I thought, that can't be it. And a few minutes later Iain came and pointed his finger at this lovely pile of old rafters from the factory in Ilkeston. I will show you later some photos. Anyway, I got really excited and started to go through this lovely stack of old wood. However, each one is crazy heavy and it took me quite a bit of time just to rummage through and then load it into my van. Luna, of course, was keeping an eye, but I was tempted to grab a few more pieces, and that is the inside of my van full with the beams. And now I'm using my cheap, now it's actually expensive labor, so my son is helping me out to offload it. Each beam is at least 50 kilo. I checked a few of them and they were, like you can see, 50 kilo each, so it was quite awkward to move them around. First thing that I did was just to lob off the excess, all the unusable ends, just to make them a little bit easier and lighter to maneuver. I have to say that the smell is absolutely amazing, and you can see how tight the rings are. It is really dense and heavy, so I used my chainsaw and all other saws just to cut it off. And interestingly, you can see on the left hand side it is quite dry and it just splits and just falls apart, so it's quite good to be cut. However, it didn't like when I tried to use the chisel, but I will show you some images later. Because it was a reclaimed wood, I thought, that would be a good idea just to buy a nice magnet, just to search for any nails or anything metal in it. Why I did not buy a metal detector? Probably that would be a cheaper and a better solution, but somehow I thought that magnet would be a better one. Anyway, I wanted to trim them as much as I can. This took me a few good weeks just to process each beam individually. So I got this lovely stack in March 2025, and I was going beam after beam after beam, trying to make them lighter and easier to maneuver, and quite a few nails remaining. And yeah, I took out quite a few of the old nails. Again, a bit of a character. Unfortunately, I missed one or two, but in the grand scheme I think I managed to extract most, if not all of them. And because it was the beams were used as a part of the roof structure, so you can see quite a few notches, so I still had to trim down all the beams to more manageable and consistent shape. So that was the initial process, and I think I finished this in April, so it took me over a month to actually go through it. And I'm using my Japanese saws just to trim off. Unfortunately, I don't have large enough circular saw or any other tool except this hand saw just to go through the depth. Again, I love the smell. It was probably my favorite, one of the best woods that I ever had in my shop to work with in terms of the smell. It was just insane. And probably the best one was when I actually used the hand plane just to have those nice shavings, and then it was just heaven. Sorry, I just love it. Anyway, on a few occasions I got surprised, with a few little hidden nails, so I went through this one, unfortunately. And you can see, I thought it will nicely split, but then bollocks, it did not split the way I wanted, so I had to trim the beam even more. Again, I thought that out of 5 beams I will be able to make the tabletop. I was aiming for 100 mil ish, probably 90 would be still okay, and my shop is not big enough, so I had to make this space in front of it just to be able to run all the beams through my trusted Metabo thicknesser. In the process, of course, I managed to damage the blades, so later on I had to swap them because they were just simply dull. I think I slightly overloaded this tool a few occasions, but that is the actual speed of running each beam through the thicknesser. It was quite a bit of a hard work. Each beam still probably weighing around 35-40 kilo at this stage, but it's getting a little bit easier. Interestingly, actually the edges were quite sharp. I know they are not sharp, but combining the weight, and it was just awkward to leave them. So now I have nice-ish 5 beams to work with, and I need to process some of the wood for the leg. So unfortunately, few pieces were a little bit rotten, and I need to get rid of the, don't drop it, the bits that were not usable, and then I will glue it up and use the remaining part of the wood for the leg. I was quite surprised to see the moisture content in the region of 16%, and the bit that I didn't tell you so far is that the beams come from the roof of the old factory built in Ilkeston at the beginning of 19th century. It was built by a Tatham factory that was making needles, and interestingly in 1941 Rolls-Royce took over the factory in Ilkeston to create or make a plant for Merlin engines that were used later on in bombers during the Second World War. So that is quite an interesting thing, and it's actually quite nice that I can reclaim some of the wood with over 200 years of history and make something that will last and will be used by me for another years to come. Apparently rafters have been imported from Canada and initially were used in the building that is circled on the right hand side of the screen. So that's a bit of a history. Happy days. And now it's time to approach my jointer, and hopefully I will be able to use it and have a good go at joining one of the faces of the beams. A little bit of elbow grease and the jointer is, or will be in a second, in a good shape. Again, it's so bloody frustrating that after a couple of weeks, couple of months of not using equipment and the moisture content in the air is just sky high, there is so much surface rust. Anyway, time to unpack new toy. So I just went and bought a new vise. I got it directly from Axminster webpage, and it is a 550mm vise, and including delivery and the handle it was 112 quid including VAT. So I'm quite excited to fit it to my workbench, and I'm using hand plane just to work on the front face of the workbench, and I have to say it was really satisfying to use my record plane, and the smell is just amazing. I just love it. So that was the front. However, my biggest headache was how to ensure that when I will be gluing together each beam, the faces will be parallel and there will be a nice solid continuous connection between both faces. So I came up with a couple of ideas how to tackle it, and I will be exploring them shortly. So the biggest headache still is just the moving beams individually, and they are so bloody heavy even before gluing the whole thing together. Constantly mindful of trapping my fingers, and to speed up some of the process I used electric plane just to get rid of the excess. After using the circular saw, I couldn't line it up nicely from top and bottom to get rid of those imperfections. So the first stage was just to use the electric hand plane to remove vast majority, and then I thought, ooh, let's use my 6 1/4 or 6 1/2 jointer. And as you can see, the first part of the beam is going nicely, and I had fairly good control of the beam, and I thought, oh, that could be potentially an option. However, outfit table is quite short, and as you can see now, I just couldn't balance it, and I just didn't have enough feel for it just to get it nice and flat. So now I'm playing with all the beams and just checking which one should go where, and that is the setup that I opted for. And the first option is to use the hand plane. Line up both beams side by side, and I was running up and down along the length of the beams, checking if they are flat, level, and hoping that it will be a good enough or sufficient solution for jointing two beams together. And overall, was it bad? Was it good? I would say 7 out of 10 maybe. I'm not hugely experienced with using hand planes. However, the joint was okay. Minor cracks, to be fair, way smaller than actually cracks in the beams and so on. Then I thought, ooh, that's a good excuse just to get a new router. And the second option that I opted for was to build up a jig so that the tops of the beams will be flush with each other, and then I will be using the router and the sled just to route off both faces at the same time, and they should be parallel and they should join properly. There is a little bit of a flex. The beams, aluminium extruded beams, are quite chunky. However, there is still a little bit of flex, and both beams were a little bit sagging when I was planing. I know it's very minor, but there was a tiny gap in the middle which I had to rectify later on with hand plane. However, as you can see, the biggest headache was actually the fact that the beams were not truly square. So I knew that there will be a little bit of a waste down the line to make the whole thing flat, but that was my setup. So as you can see now, the beams and the cuts from the circular saw created effectively 4 different levels, and just to make it all work, I just used the sled and the router just to finish it off and have nice continuous surface. And now after this operation, it's nice, level, and it's good to go. And the fact that it's not perfectly smooth, actually I think it's working in my favor, because then the glue will have a nicer surface to actually stick in and perform good. So now you can, or you might be able to see a little bit of a daylight going through the crack. However, again, by the time I will apply glue and the clamps, the crack will disappear. Oh, that was time for a beer. I was just dehydrated. And by using a little bit of a force, the crack gap just disappears, and that's not a headache. So overall, I was quite pleased with the first two, or the first joint actually, and it was ready for a glue up, which actually was quite satisfying to do. The bit that I don't like is just a messy fingers after it, but that's fine. And the glue up, yeah, I would say happy story. But now, as you can see, even heavier bits to link together. And I went through the same process, however, I had to rectify the ends, and this lovely hand plane sorted this out. This wood was really nice to work with hand tools in terms of the planing. It was really satisfying, nice shavings, and just joy to use. And of course the smell. I just love the smell. It was just amazing. Is it just me? But whenever I want to use the glue, I struggle to unscrew the cap, so I had to use the pliers. And yep, new bottle, and it's good to go. So again, a little bit of a faff just to flip the beam, bearing in mind that already one side is glued and the edges are fairly sharp. I know they are not sharp, but again, considering the weight, it's just uncomfortable on your own. If I would have a little helper, probably life would be a little bit easier, but in the grand scheme, I'm quite happy. Lots of glue. The fact that there will be a bit of a squeeze out, who cares? It didn't matter. And yep, 3 beams linked together, jointed, and yep, happy with it. Beams were not perfectly square, as I mentioned, and they were not perfectly flat. So I had to use the clamps at the end just to try to keep them as close together as possible. But in the grand scheme, it was not the most tricky glue up ever. Happy days. All beams glued together. As you can see now, there is a little bit of a rocking. And that is the biggest headache. It's bloody heavy. So having individual beams was tricky, but now having 5 is a bit of a challenge. To lift it, it was okay. But then to flip it, that was even harder, because yeah, just being on your own is really hard. And to be fair, I didn't want to ask kids or my partner to give me a hand, because yeah, if I would be dropping this on someone's fingers, that would not be a happy story. And yes, you can see how uneven the top is. So again, I knew that I will have to sacrifice around 8-10 millimeters either side. I'm used to the dust, and that's usually okay when you are using a router so much. However, the amount of smoke was just unbelievable. I tried to keep the bits clean, and I cleaned them a few times, but the amount of smoke was just crazy. And yes, after using the router, it is nice and flat. Still struggling to flip it. That was the biggest headache, just to have a good control and ensure that it will not fall down, because it could create some damage. So yep, stay. So happy days with this one. And that's what I mentioned, just to flip it back. That was the biggest challenge, do it safely. That's why across the whole process of making this workbench, I just try to do as little in terms of the flipping this moves as possible, because each one just was ugh, dreadful. Yep, some more smoke. Yeah, it just got horrendous. Yeah, and a few cobwebs. And that is the build-up on the router. So I tried to use a few times white spirit, which didn't help. And then I found that actually acetone is way better to get rid of that residue. So white spirit, I tried once or twice, no luck. Acetone, yep, solved the issue with a little bit of a toothbrush. Let it soak in for a minute or so, and then yeah, it was fairly easy to wipe it off and remove the buildup. However, the new buildup would be back in just split second, so it was a bit pointless exercise. And now I'm using the tape so I can pour some resin and fill up the biggest cracks. In the past months and years, I know that I have used in the past resin on quite a few projects, but I like it less and less. I just prefer wood, and I use resin just as a last resort. And on that occasion, I thought that resin would be probably the best product to fill up the voids. It will penetrate the easiest, and it will just fill up all the void cracks and nookies, crannies without any headache. So that's why I opted for resin, and I used the black pigment just to stain it black, and I thought it will look best. Somehow, yeah, I think the days of resin are gone, and now I'm using again sellotape just to seal the underside or the top, and poured some resin on top of it on the second side. And again, some more smoke, more dust. I have to say that this cheap-ish Erbauer router for 100 quid does the job. It has a long cord and it's quite powerful. It does the job. You can see my trusted Makita with, I think, 65mm cutting depth. Struggles to go through, but again, just to make the whole thing lighter, I thought it's high time to trim it to final-ish length. Again, the smell, just love it. It is now nearly a year ago when I bought this record number 8 plane, hand plane, and that's exactly what I had in mind when I got it, so I will be able to finish off the top. Was it an easy task? It was okay. Probably what I would actually like to have is access from both sides. It was quite restrictive when I just couldn't walk around the table and just have proper access, and the top is just too heavy to flip it 180 degrees. And again, I used every opportunity to slim it down, and I'm using this lovely piece of reclaimed wardrobe as a guide for my track saw. And yeah, as you can see, it didn't penetrate all the way, so I used it from both sides just to cut it as good as I could in terms of the alignment, and then I just used the router just to trim it off. Is it perfect? No, it's not amazingly perfect. There is still a tiny gap, as you can see, but again, it does the job. And as soon as I managed to trim a face, I used the round over bit just to round over, because again, this wood is quite brittle and it was really easy to chip corners. So each time I had an exposed face, I used the round over. Now I managed to flip it and to the underside. I had a bit of a dilemma, how far should I go with underside, and then I just thought it's not really worth going too deep to make it perfect. A, no one will actually see it, and B, I didn't want to lose any more in terms of the thickness, and I just wanted to keep the top as heavy as possible. In the meantime, I managed to restore this vise, so you can see another video when I did this restoration. And it is record number 52 from 1930s, and now it is nice and shiny, and I have to say I really like having this vise. I don't know how I survived in the past without a single actually fixed vise to my workbench. Now I have two, and I have to say I love it. And of course I'm using the English plane for the vise jaws, and every time I apply the finish it just looks bloody amazing. I just love it. You can see all the grain pop and it just makes me smile. I just love it. Especially look at this beauty. Yeah, I like this one a lot. And it is time to fill up small little voids. I would say probably it's an overkill. It's not actually a furniture that I would like to sell. It's just a workbench that will be dinged. And yeah, I couldn't resist. I still had to fill up some voids and use the card scraper just to get rid of the excess. And as you can see on the left hand side, there is this void in the beam. That is original slot as a part of the roof construction. I just thought I will leave it. I will probably keep my pencils or chisels when working, and of course I struggle a little bit for space, as you can see, so I had to shift it, but again it's so flipping heavy, it is hard. However, I was quite happy that my little jointer can handle those members, and I have 4 of those, and it will be a set of legs for the workbench. And yeah, after a few goes they were quite nice, and it was time to use this offcut from the main beams, and I will be using this as a stretcher. And again, the smell is just amazing. I just love it. It just made me smile. However, as you can see, I'm using face mask with good dust protection. Because of the amount of dust, it was just crazy. Anyway, the jointer is doing the trick, and yeah, it does the job. I would like to have maybe once in the future slightly wider one with maybe a guard or some hand protection. And yeah, just trimming the stretchers on my table saw for the final size. I try to keep it as wide as possible just to give it more stability when all the connections will be done. I'm still impressed with this Metabo thicknesser. I put it through the paces on the heavy chunky beams, and yeah, it performed as it should. And finally, after, what is it, 5 months, I have all the lumber ready to go to assemble the workbench. So yeah, this makes me still smile. I like the new vise, old vise. However, my miter saw, as you can see, couldn't cope with the size. I think it is officially rated for 85-ish millimeters cut. However, those legs are, if I remember correct, around 150 millimeters, so I had to flip them 3 times just to be able to cut them. It didn't really matter if they will be perfect, but overall I was quite surprised that actually I managed to cut them nicely. Still happy with the vise. Yep, fitted additional dogs and pop-up dogs. Yeah, love it. I'm amazed, how did I survive without the vise? And now, unlimited opportunities, possibilities. Yep, still love it. Up to that point, I have never done mortise and tenon and a joinery, and I thought, ooh, that is a good opportunity to have a go. And I have to say that overall precision was not 100% there. Some of the connections, joints, I would say I was proud of. Some were a little bit of a hidden mess. Overall, I was struggling down the line to fit them in because of the heavy top. I didn't want to flip it too often, so I had to try to fit the legs in somehow with limited number of rotations of the worktop, and I'm using my drill just to remove the excess. I have to say it was a slow process, but in a twisted way it was quite satisfying to use quite a few different tools and play with it. And yeah, some of the cuts were nice and square, some a little bit less, but down the line I was getting a little bit more practice and they were getting better and better. Of course, as I mentioned at some point, this wood is really nice to cut and to plane. However, it's absolutely pain in the backside to use a chisel across the grain. Somehow the grain is quite soft, spongy. I'm not sure how to actually describe it. When you cut it, it's really nice. When you use the chisel and they are sharp, it just compresses the fibers and it's not making a nice, clean, consistent cut across the grain. If you are using chisels along the grain, they are fine. However, it is really easy to split the wood. And I have to say again that I really like my set of Japanese saws. They're just nice and never stops to amaze me how much difference it makes if you're using one side or the other, if it is for crosscut or ripping. Anyway, marking another line, and yeah, and you can see now the chisel is taking nice-ish shavings, and along the grain it is absolutely fine and it's quite nice to work with. What I like about this project is that I had to use so many different tools, some power tools, some hand tools, but this Japanese rasp is absolutely amazing. I really like it. It's so good to use it. It's one of my favorite tools. I'm just looking at the timeline and it took me another 2 months to cut all the legs and create tenons. Yep. Yeah, it was a slow process, and I thought, oh, let's use my portable pillar drill as well to help the process. And is it a good call? Not 100% convinced. So I used the normal wood drills, then Forstner bits, just to get rid of the vast majority of the waste. And again, using the drill is fine. Trying to use the chisel, I didn't enjoy cutting through the fibers. And I'm using this lovely opportunity finally to have some dog holes. And again, I thought I will use this pillar drill to make nice square holes. But to be honest, I prefer the one that I made by hand. That they are, yes, they are slightly wonky, they are not perfect. However, because of this, they are not bang on 20 millimeters, they are just fraction bigger. And because of this, actually all the dogs are getting into the holes so much easier. Again, I wanted to cut on the amount of times I will flip the top. So I used the chisels from one side to get as good shape as I wanted. And then I used the router with flush trim bit to do the other side. On that occasion, what a plonker, I didn't go deep enough and I had to use handheld router upside down. That was a little bit sketchy, but again, I thought it is less risky to do it that way than try to flip the top again. So once I managed to remove more excess, then I used the flush trim bit just to get rid of the excess from the other side. And as I mentioned at some point, this tiny little block plane came so handy on so many occasions. And the first connection, yippee! Tiny holes, yeah, but nothing major. It was fairly tight connection. And rounding over the legs, the block plane is doing the trick. I had to sharpen the chisels quite a few times despite the fact it was a softwood, I thought I would keep them sharp. And yes, the first application of the dog holes, and bang good from bang good dogs and some clamps. Smell, yeah. Still enjoying this. Because I don't have data stack, I thought I will use another technique, which is use the table saw first, just to cut the line where the tenon will end up. Then I use my big router to remove the bulk of the waste, and once I was done with this one, fine-tune it because it was more stable. My handheld router, palm router, and effectively I had to do it in few stages, but overall I was quite happy. Then I thought, ooh, let's use this lovely opportunity to use another tool, which is the bandsaw, and can I cut the tenons using the bandsaw? And yeah, that was a fairly good process, probably a little bit less messy than the router option. Was it as precise? Probably not, because the bandsaw is a little bit uneven. And now I'm creating a recess for the future shelf. So then I just want to make sure that the workbench will be as sturdy and heavy as possible. So I want to have a chunky shelf as well. After creating so many mortises within the top, I just thought I would use more power tools for the legs and the lovely rasp. I have to do it in, let's say, a few stages, just to make a tiny opening, just to check the fit. Once I was happy, as you can see now, so it is just penetrating just a couple of millimeters. When I was happy with this one, then I used my handheld router just to enlarge the opening, make it deeper, and again I didn't go all the way in, so I did it in few stages, so checked once. Oh, by the way, I did label each connection, because in theory they were supposed to be very similar, but in reality there was a bit of a discrepancy between them in terms of the size. And because of this, by having each one labeled, it was easier to ensure that I will not mix them up and they will be as tight fit as possible. So again, after 3 different stages, a bit of a hammer, and happy days. That was quite a nice tight fit. So I have to say that I'm quite proud of it. And that is the bit that I probably underestimated. Somehow I thought that a single dowel will be enough. Maybe I should have used 2 dowels, but in the grand scheme the glue is doing the job, and all the connections were quite tight anyway. And yeah, somehow I thought that the single dowel is a good call. Later on I was watching quite a few videos on YouTube, and usually people were using 2 dowels per connection, but time will tell if it was a good call or a bad call. And before I assembled the whole lot, I just thought I would use the opportunity to mark up on the longest front stretcher all the holes for any dogs in the future. And yeah, I bought this one on Banggood, and I have to say it's so handy. It fits in 2 holes, and just thought I will use this one as a spacer. And yeah, I marked up the maximum spacing between the knobs, and yeah, I used the opportunity to drill all the holes on my pillar drill. And I have to say thanks Wojtek for making me buy this pillar drill. It just makes life so much easier. And the fact that I'm using masking tape on the back ensure that there is virtually no tear out. And at the same time, I thought I would drill a few holes on the front legs, and as you can see, the Forstner bit does not penetrate deep enough, so then I switched to flat spade bit, which is not my favorite one. And then once I managed to just penetrate through, I flipped the piece upside down and used oversized Forstner bit. So all the holes I was aiming for 20 mil, and then the oversized hole was with 25 mil. Again, based on the overall depth of the stock, there is no need for the dogs to be all the way that deep, that wide. So I may just make my life a little bit easier, and it's time to fit in some legs, which funny enough look quite skinny in comparison to the actual wood. So I bought the leveling legs on Amazon, and time will tell if they will be any good. I tried to pick the one that will be with the biggest thread. I can't remember if it was M12, but we'll see if they perform well or not. And it is time to pay attention to the front vise. And as you can see, it protrudes underneath quite a bit from the top or bottom of the worktop. So I just want to create a bit of a recess so that it will be performing better down the line. Again, it doesn't really matter in terms of the precision, so I just used hand router, and by hand I then create a jig or a template and a little bit of a sandpaper to smooth off the edges. And probably now you will see the most frustrating part after marking up all the holes for the vise. Oh, I need to pause this topic. Iain, that is the bit. Have a look at the middle section. That is the painful part of the wood that is just so spongy and with so many voids and pores that when using even a sharp chisel, I struggle to make a nice clean cut. So yeah, it is good when it comes to cutting, sanding, or using hand plane, but I don't like to chisel it out. And now came the fun part. Not really fun. It's somehow always stressful to do the glue up. I know there is a limited time. I did the dry run, so all the connections should fit in nicely. But I just wanted to assemble the base, and when it will be still fresh-ish, try to land the top so that if there is any imperfection in terms of alignment and it's not bang on 90 degrees on some occasions, I will have a bit of a wiggle room to push it in. Would it help to have someone to give me a hand? Yes, definitely. It is so freaking heavy. On that note, I'm quite tempted to check the overall weight. I don't know what is the total weight. If you can guess what is the weight, leave the comment below. That would be quite fun just to see. At the moment, I would be guessing around 140, 150 kilo, but I'm not entirely sure. I think I would like, just for my own satisfaction and knowledge, just to check the weight. So maybe I will do this exercise today and just add later on in the comments or in the description. And probably it's high time to buy like a silicone brush. Maybe it will help me with the next glue up instead of using finger every time. And yeah, lack of space sometimes is annoying, but hey ho, I managed somehow to land it. And let's use the gravity and additional 95 kilo of hopping up and down. And yeah, I'm quite pleased I managed to land all 4 legs on my own. And yes, definitely I'm happy that I have fitted self-leveling feet so that I can level the bench down the line. And some of the connections were not that tight, and I just thought, okay, let's accept it. It is what it is. And I just quickly made a few wedges. And actually, I have to say that I do like how the wedges came up after cutting them off, sanding and applying oil. They just look quite nice. It was my first time that I did that kind of connection. And is it perfect? No, it's not. But with all the wedges in, it's quite good. To be fair, I just used, I think, overall 4 little wedges for the bigger gaps. So overall, happy days. And I used the masking tape to prevent any damage when I will be cutting off the excess. Again, judging how hard it was to use the chisel, I didn't want to use the hand plane on the cross grain, and I just thought I would just take off the bulk by sawing it off, and then just use the belt sander just to sand it off the excess. The only downside of the blue tape is that after a while it just starts to roll up, and then the sticky part sticks to your saw, and it's a little bit harder to actually sew. I love the saws, by the way. Yep, happy days. Can't remember how many years I have this Erbauer belt sander, but it does the job. Ideally, I would like to get in the future maybe a little bit bigger one, but actually on my list of toys that I would really like to buy is a Bosch random orbiter sander. That's something that I do fancy. Maybe this year, when it will be maybe Black Friday, I could find some good deals to get it. Currently, I think they are retailing for around 360, 370 pounds. So if I could get some better deal, maybe I will get myself an early Christmas gift. I did fill up a few little voids with wood glue just to make them even better. And time to cut off the dowels. Yep, job done. And apply the finishes. So I went on that occasion with Osmo. Hopefully this one will be quite durable. Again, thanks Iain for recommendation that hopefully it will help me if I will have anything spilled or any glue in the future on top of the workbench, that I will be able to wipe it off and it will be easy to maintain. I'm under no illusion that probably after half a year, it will be dinged, damaged, and just simply use the top. But in the grand scheme, in a couple of years time, I'll just use a hand plane and just take a top millimeter, half a millimeter, and just make it flat and nice again. And the black resin actually came quite nice after applying the finishes. And now going back to the painful process. So you can see this lovely snapped wood screw without pointing fingers. It was actually my daughter that managed to snap it. And I thought I will be able to extract it by removing a little bit more of wood around it, and I will have better clamping option around it. After, not sure, half an hour spent under the table, I didn't manage, so I thought, screw it. Let's just drill another hole, a couple of millimeters to the side of it, and that was probably the easiest way forward. I just simply couldn't extract it. It just went in and I had no fighting chance to remove it. So as you can see now, I'm drilling a pilot hole and then the size that I was after. I think overall the screws were around 8mm. Probably I should have clamped the vise so that I don't actually have to hold the whole weight. So that is my second go of fixing the vise, and so far it's looking good, so I'm quite happy. And once I managed to tighten up a few wood screws, it seems to be quite rock solid. So overall, I'm quite happy with the process.
No fucking way. Fuck.
I lied. I managed to snap one on my own. So one, my daughter managed to snap, and then an hour later I managed to snap one. So,
Bloody hell.
yep, hopefully it bloody helps. Yep. And that's the third go when I'm trying to fix the vise. And hopefully a little bit of lubrication will help with the process. So again, it is so awkward just to hold it up. Can't remember how heavy it is. Say 10 kilo, which is not crazy heavy, but it's just awkward. You just need probably 3 hands. Yeah, probably I should have clamped it. Yeah, that would be a better call. Yep, I agree with you.
4 to
Yep.
go.
4 to go, yes. So anyway, after another hour, I managed to ram in all 4, and these are the bloody wood screws that we managed to snap. How on earth we managed to do it? We just had a tiny ratchet, but still somehow we managed to do it. And that is fun part, just to use another piece of English plain platanus to create a matching jaw for the front vise. This one somehow doesn't smell at all nice. I'm not crazy on the smell. And Luna is chilling out. I think she will need a chiropractor or a physiotherapist later on. She might have a neck ache down the line. So I'm following a lovely instruction from the wood vise, and fuck. Bloody hell. Somehow I managed to misread the instruction and I offset the hole wrong way around. And then I thought, no, I can't be bothered to do it again. It doesn't really matter that I will have extra set of holes. So I just left them as they are. It will be just a tiny reminder to measure twice before I make any cuts like this. I know. It is a little bit annoying. Should I have made another piece? Probably, but then it doesn't really matter. It is so chunky, so big. But again, it will be a bit of a laugh for me in the future. What a plonker I am that I managed to misread the instruction. Funny enough, I even opened the instruction, checked dimensions, lay it out properly, but I then noticed that they were upside down. And of course, applying a little chamfer. This 20 quid adapter for the Palm router is just amazing. The router is so stable, I like it. And of course, application of the finishes, I love it. It just looks so nice. The wood grain, wow, I never get bored. Anyway, when it comes to reclaimed wood, I bought a stack. It was initially, I think, twice that size, stack of wood for 20 quid on Facebook Marketplace. Again, it has been reclaimed from some property. They were caked in all sorts of stuff. Hopefully no asbestos, but it was definitely caked in plaster and some other stuff. So I just tried to remove the residue of it before using any tools on it. This one didn't smell as nice as I was hoping for. It has some pine, but it didn't smell that nice. And I just thought I would create a platform shelf for the bench, and by adding those chunky beams, it will just add extra few kilo. And yep, ripping all this on my table saw, removing the face with all the plaster and residue. You can see so many holes after old nails, and overall I was quite lucky. I didn't hit many nails, and yep, creating more dust, and somehow my thicknesser survived this process. So this is the prep for the shelf that will go right there, and I managed to create a bit of a mess in the process. I probably should have invested in some extractor, trimming off the edges so that they will be sitting flush with the stretchers. So I used the bandsaw as well to cut it off. Now I'm cutting the rough length. Again, it's not perfectly square, the whole frame, so each one is just a fraction different length, so I just cut them individually in sequence. And for the edges, I needed a flatter piece, so I did resaw this one, and one side, ta-da, quite nice and smooth, and I was quite happy. I bought a new blade, by the way, for the bandsaw. However, the other side, bloody hell, some surprise nail inside, but the blade somehow managed to go through it. So yeah, not bad. Then water plonker. I managed to cut it by miles off. Yep, shit happens. Anyway, so I had to make another one, and my little helper, my daughter, came to help me with final touches on the vise. So I'm happy with this one. And it is time to add a few more dog holes. Again, by doing this by hand, I just found it that the whole hole is actually easier in use down the line. It is just that fraction oversized. So overall I was aiming for 20 mil. So all the hardware that I bought is designed for 20 millimeters, and I did it in 3 stages. So 20 mil from the top, followed by 20 millimeters spade drill. Yep, until I could touch the tip penetrating through, and then I used 25 millimeter Forstner blade from underneath to finish it off, and of course the round over to prevent any chips and just make the usage a little bit easier. And that is the prep for the shelf. So the shelf is coming in, and yeah, overall I like it. So if you lasted 50 odd minutes watching this video and me talking for so long, thank you very much for watching. If you could subscribe, that would be absolutely amazing, and enjoy a few final photographs. Hopefully see you next time.